High school is supposed to be a place of learning, friendship, and memories. But for some, it becomes the setting for something much darker. In tonight's video, we uncover 3 chilling true stories that took place beyond the classroom. Encounters with danger, obsession, and the unexplained. From a midnight trap set in the woods, to a predator lurking behind locker doors, to a moment of absolute terror in a forgotten school basement. These are not your average high school tales. These are stories that prove sometimes the real lesson is survival. The cemetery invitation, the twins' trap. It was the start of junior year, and I had just transferred to Southern Lehigh High School in Pennsylvania. Being the new kid was never easy, but it was especially brutal when everyone already had their cliques, their routines, their inside jokes. I'd wander the halls with earbuds in, trying to look busy between classes, avoiding the awkward reality that I knew no one. Lunchtime was the worst. Juniors weren't allowed to leave campus, so I had no choice but to find a seat in the overfilled cafeteria. When I walked in that Friday, my first day, every table was packed. I wasn't even given the dignity of sitting alone. Except for one table. In the far corner, near the windows, sat 2 kids, identical twins. They looked up as I approached, and I awkwardly asked if I could join them. They exchanged a glance, then one of them nodded. "Yeah, sure," one said with a shrug. "Plenty of room." They introduced themselves as Antonio and Bruno. They looked like they had Hispanic roots, but spoke with no accent. The conversation was casual, mostly surface level. I figured maybe this was a lucky break. Everyone needs a place to start. Before lunch was over, they invited me to hang out later that night. Bruno texted me that evening around 8:45, telling me to meet them near the cemetery, an old one not far from my house. He said there was a lake hidden in the woods behind it. "Chill spot," he wrote. "You'll love it." Normally, I'd never agree to something like that, but I was trying to be less isolated. Plus, we didn't have school the next day. I grabbed a hoodie, texted Bruno I was on my way, and stepped into the night. The walk to the cemetery was quiet and cold, the kind of cold that crept up your spine even though it wasn't winter yet. Streetlights got sparser the closer I got. By the time I reached the road leading into the woods, I was relying on my phone's flashlight. I texted Bruno. "Here, where are you?" He replied instantly. "In the woods, by the lake, sending my location." The GPS dot blinked deeper into the trees. I stepped off the road and into the forest, pushing aside low branches, my flashlight barely piercing the darkness. The deeper I went, the quieter it got. No wind, no crickets, just the crunch of my shoes on dead leaves. "Bruno," I called out. No answer. "Antonio." Silence. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, behind me. I stopped walking and held my breath. The footsteps stopped too. I turned around, scanning the woods with my flashlight. Nothing. I chuckled nervously, half hoping they were trying to prank me. "Guys, this isn't funny." Still nothing. I turned and started walking back toward the road. That's when I heard it. The same footsteps again, only now they were faster. running. Before I could react, someone lunged at me from the side, grabbing me by the neck with both hands. Nails dug into my skin, choking me. I tried to scream, but only wheezed out air. Then I heard the voice. "Grab him." Antonio or Bruno, maybe both. I twisted and thrashed, somehow breaking free. I sprinted through the woods toward the road, not looking back. The trees whipped at my arms and face, but adrenaline drowned out the pain. I didn't stop running until I burst through my front door. My parents were shocked. My mom saw the red marks on my neck and gasped. My dad's face turned white with rage. We debated calling the police, but instead decided to report it to the school the next day. I still had the text from Bruno and photos of the nail marks. That Monday, the principal brought both twins into the office. With my story, the photos, and Bruno's messages, they were expelled by the end of the week. I blocked their numbers, of course. But a week later, something happened that made me realize it wasn't over. I woke up around 2 a.m., shivering. My room was ice cold, even though the heat was on. I looked over and saw that my window, normally shut and locked, was wide open. Below my window was a small ledge, just big enough for someone to stand on. My dad had mentioned it once in case of emergencies. That night, it was a threat. I walked to my parents' room, knocked gently and asked, "Did you open my window?" My mom shook her head, half asleep. "What? Number Y?" "It's wide open." She sat up. "What?" I was already walking back down the hall. My bedroom door had been wide open when I left. Now it was half shut. I paused. A sick feeling rose in my stomach. I slowly pushed the door open. And there, hiding behind it, was a figure. I screamed, loud. My dad burst from the hallway, just as the figure slammed the door shut and darted for the window. My dad flung the door open just in time to see someone leap from the ledge and vanish into the night. He chased after them barefoot, but came back minutes later, out of breath. No one. The police came, took a report, but with no ID and no prints, they couldn't do anything. They told us to lock everything and consider cameras. We did. But I never forgot the eyes I saw that night. And the grin. That wasn't a prank. That was a warning. The shadow in the yearbook room. True story. My high school had this old, forgotten room tucked behind the library. They called it the yearbook room, but no one had used it in years. The rumor was that it used to be the photography lab back in the 80s, until some electrical fire forced them to shut it down. It was never renovated. They just locked the door and left it to rot. I had no reason to go in there. Until senior year. I was part of the school newspaper, and one afternoon, my advisor, Mrs. Halloran, asked if I could help her find old yearbooks for an alumni feature we were working on. She handed me a key and said, "They're probably in that old yearbook room behind the library. Just don't be in there after dark. The breakers down there are finicky." I kind of laughed it off. I mean, how creepy could a room full of yearbooks really be? I went alone, since everyone else had already gone home or was at practice. The library was quiet, lights already dimming as the sun set outside. I found the hidden door behind a tall shelf. The key fit. With a rusty creak, the door opened into darkness and dust. The smell hit me first. Old paper, mildew, and something metallic, like copper or rust. I turned on my phone flashlight and stepped inside. Stacks of old boxes and photo reels lined the walls. Some ancient equipment was still plugged into the wall, lifeless. The shelves were full of dusty binders and yearbooks dating back to the 60s. I started flipping through them, collecting anything from the last few decades. That's when I heard it. A soft shuffle, like fabric brushing the ground. I froze, held my breath, then nothing. I told myself it was just the sound of the air vent turning on, or maybe a mouse, but something didn't feel right. It felt like someone was in there with me, watching. Still, I didn't want to seem paranoid. I stacked the yearbooks I needed and started heading back to the door. That's when I noticed a Polaroid camera sitting on one of the tables, pointed toward the middle of the room. It looked too new to belong in that dusty space. Out of curiosity, I looked at the photo tray. It had a fresh photo in it, and it was a photo of me, taken from behind. Chills ran down my spine. I spun around expecting someone to be there, holding the camera, but I was alone. The room was quiet. I dropped the photo and ran for the door. It was stuck. I yanked on it again, but it wouldn't budge. Something was holding it shut from the other side. I pounded on the door, yelled, hoping the librarian was still around. No answer. I pulled out my phone to call someone, but the battery was dead. It had been at 70% just minutes ago. Then, in the dark reflection of an old glass photo frame, I saw it. A figure standing just a few feet behind me. It wasn't solid, more like a silhouette, black smoke shaped like a person. It didn't move like a person either. It twitched and shimmered, like static on a broken screen. I turned around. Nothing. I heard the soft shuffle again. This time it was moving closer. I grabbed one of the old metal photo stands and swung it in the air behind me, screaming, "Who's there?" Silence. Then a whisper, right by my ear. "You look just like her." The light bulb overhead flickered violently, and then the door burst open on its own. I didn't stop to question it. I bolted. Mrs. Halloran found me in the hallway later, still shaking. When I told her what happened, she turned pale and said quietly, "We never should have kept that room." She later explained that in the early 90s, a student photographer had disappeared, a girl named Danielle. Her last known location was that room. All they found was her camera, filled with photos she couldn't have taken. Pictures of herself, sleeping, alone, in her bedroom, in the hallway, in that room. Since then, weird things kept happening until the administration quietly shut the place down. They fired the janitor who reported seeing her ghost taking pictures of students in the hallways at night. After that, the room was just forgotten, until I walked back in. We don't talk about it much, but I still have that photo, the one of me, taken from behind. I keep it hidden at the back of my closet. Sometimes when I take it out, there's another figure in it, closer than before. The locker room trap, a substitute's secret. It was the fall of 2007, my freshman year of high school. The kind of rainy day where the sky hangs heavy and gray, and the air smells like wet asphalt and something old. Gym class was our last period, and no one was in the mood for anything physical, least of all me. Our usual gym teacher was out sick that day, and the substitute they sent in was off. He was tall, thin, maybe in his late 50s. Gray stubble, yellowed glasses, a stiff way of walking like his joints didn't trust each other. His name tag read Mr. Bradshaw, but the way he looked at me when calling roll made my stomach tighten. A pause, a double take. I brushed it off, told myself I was being paranoid. We played a half-hearted round of volleyball. I stayed in the back, barely moving, just waiting for the bell to ring. After about 15 minutes, Mr. Bradshaw disappeared into the hallway near the locker rooms and didn't come back. Nobody really noticed. Nobody cared. When the bell finally rang, we all headed to the locker rooms to change and go home. That's when things took a strange turn. I couldn't open my locker. I tried my combination again and again. The numbers clicked, but the lock stayed firm. It didn't make sense. I'd opened that locker every day for weeks without issue. Annoyed, I went out into the hallway, found Mr. Bradshaw just standing there, staring out the window at the rain. I explained the situation. He smiled, too calmly. Must have slipped your mind, he said. Give me a second. I'll check the list. A few minutes later, he came back, not with just the list, but a whole binder, already flipped to a page. It felt too fast, like he'd already prepared it. Come on, I'll help, he said, motioning toward the girls' locker room. I paused. Why was he walking in with me? He didn't ask. He just followed. By now, the locker room was nearly empty. One girl was still finishing up, but she hurried out the moment she saw us. Mr. Bradshaw knelt down in front of my locker, reading the combination off the sheet, twisting the dial slowly. It didn't work. He tried again, and again. Then he started chuckling softly. Guess it's being stubborn, he said, glancing up at me with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. His hand was still on the locker dial, but the other moved. It rested on my shoulder. I froze. His grip was light at first, but then I felt it start to move, slowly sliding down toward my lower back. I stepped back, heart racing. It's fine. I'm late for the bus, I said quickly. But right at that moment, the locker clicked open. He smiled, like he had known all along. No need to rush now, he said. I waited for him to leave the room, and when I heard the door shut behind me, I quickly changed as fast as I could. Then the lights went out. Not flickered, cut out completely. Everything was plunged into darkness. My breath caught. I still had one leg out of my jeans. I fumbled to finish dressing, shoving things into my bag, trying not to panic. I didn't want to believe it was intentional, but something deep in my gut screamed that it was. I started walking toward the back exit of the locker room, the one that led outside. But before I could reach it, I stopped. I was at the intersection between two rows of lockers, where I'd have to turn left to reach the door. Something told me, look right. So I did. And that's when I saw him, peeking at me. Just his face, leaning out from behind the end of the locker row, lit by a faint shaft of light from the tiny window near the ceiling. His expression was twisted, not angry, not smiling, hungry. I bolted. Wait! Hey! It's not what it looks like! He shouted. I didn't stop. I ran through the emergency exit into the pouring rain and didn't look back. I didn't go home by bus. I walked all the way, 3 miles in the rain, just to stay in the open, among people, among light. When I got home, soaked to the bone, I stared at myself in the mirror and tried to understand what had happened. Tried to explain it away, but I couldn't. The next day, I found out from another teacher that the sub had left early and wouldn't be coming back. That was it. No investigation, no questions. I never told my parents. I didn't tell my friends. It was easier to bury it, to pretend it never happened. But every time I walk into a locker room now, no matter how old I get, I feel it. That instinct to look right, just in case someone is there, waiting, watching.